Thank you. Thanks very much. So I'm going to talk to you about the tools we use to get stuff done. So I thought I'd just share what we use as a part of our team and see if there's anything that is useful to you and that you're going to pick out. A little bit about me. So my name's Ben Kinnaird. I am the owner and main proprietor of Rather Inventive. We work with a small team of employees and contractors. We do a variety of different work from marketing, AdWords management, analytics training. We work with guys like Chris over there on SEO and bringing him on board to really zero in on things. And also video producers as well, photographers. Me, I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I do lots of different things. I probably don't really go into depth in any of them, including WordPress. I probably know enough to be dangerous. But I like to work with lots of different people, and I'm sort of the conduit between a lot of our clients. Oh, I also host a podcast with our web developer called Something Inventive. So if any of you are interested in finding out what we come across in terms of the tools that we use or the problems that we're coming across, it's certainly worth a listen. In fact, last episode we were talking about deepfakes. I don't know if anyone's heard about that. It's basically where you've got sort of video fakes that are so good that you can put people like Nicolas Cage into pretty much every film imaginable just by using computer artificial intelligence to sort of remorph that face in. It's absolutely amazing stuff, and it's going to be something that is going to be both a problem and probably a benefit to society soon. So, it is very scary. So as I said, this is our marketing agency, front page of our website, We Like Robots. We do lots of different stuff. I don't cover all of that. I just work with people to sort of help them muddle through that, because as a business, you've got to deal with a lot of these things, so I help people do that. We also have a monthly email newsletter, and again, some decent content coming from our podcast sort of filters down into that, plus other things we've seen on Twitter, things I've read, and just spent hours poring over other podcasts and pulling out these little details. But anyway, onwards and upwards. So basically, I've broken all of our tools down into a few different sections: code, media, and then project management. So first through code, I'm just going to rattle through them. If you've used these bits of software before, let me know. I want to see how you use them, what you think about them, whether you use any different tools. This is what we use. They may not be the best. And if anything, I want to learn as much about the tools you use and maybe learn better ones that we can incorporate into what we're doing. This first one's called Coda, Coda 2 by Panic. Panic are an interesting company. They're Mac only, unfortunately. Did I say that? I'm a Mac enthusiast, so if you have Windows, I'm going to recommend a lot of things that you probably can't use. I do apologise for that. But there's lots of similars, between the two platforms. What I like about Panic is it's made by a company who really understand web development. Now, not WordPress development per se, but they do understand web development because they do that themselves, and so they develop this tool to really help with that process. And I like a lot of the way it works. It helps us manage all of our different projects and sites, so we keep all those files that we're working on together rather than having to manage different folder structures. You can have a split view, so you can have code in one panel, and you can have the preview in the other, and when you update the code, it auto-updates the preview. And it's little things like that that are quite helpful rather than constantly pressing F5 to refresh. And it just basically keeps everything together, even syncs across different platforms. One of the things they've got is an app. So I've got the iPhone version here. I barely use that one, but I do use their iPad version. So if I'm away on holiday and there's a crunch where I need to gain access, my iPad's already synced up all the sites I'm working on in Coda with the iPad, so I can just jump in and go straight into SFTP and get access to a file if I need to. I try not to. I try not to work on holiday. Sometimes that happens. Hopefully not on the weekend as well. So that's what I like about Coda, because it's a one tool integrated development environment for pure web coding. Doesn't really work so well for WordPress, and you can go in and play with the files, and you can go and edit them, but you can't get that nice preview that you can with a straight HTML, but it's still a really nice editor to use. So the next app I use is called BB Edit. Does anyone use this one? It's really good, and you can download this version for free. I think it costs £37 if you actually buy it, but you can get a free version with limited elements to it. But what I really like it for, when you've got those situations where you've got a big blob of text and you need to do a find and replace, because you don't want to spend ages going through that manually in WordPress, going through each of the pages or going through the blogs, swapping everything out. You can actually do it in here. So if you copy it in, and you can understand a little bit of regular expressions, you can put that in and it will find and replace that in the file. It'll even find and replace it over multiple files. You can just give it a folder and it will scoot through all the different files in there and do that find and replace for you. You can even do a dry run so you can see what it's going to do first. I love it. It's a really nice tool. I use it pretty much just for that find and replace. It's really fast. It can deal with massive, gigabyte files without a problem, which I know some text editors have a problem with, and it works really well. So that's pretty good. What else do we find about it? Yeah, I think it's just something we use a lot. I don't know if you come across it. You've got some formatted text from a Word document. I know WordPress handles that quite well now, but some of the systems don't, and you need to just get into plain text because you don't care about everything else. BBEdit's really good at doing that because you can just copy it into that system and then copy it back out, and you know it's going to be completely clean, nice text to work with, not have these hidden codes behind it. Another bit of software made by the same company as Coda is called Transmit, and they've got this awesome logo. And if you go to their website, I don't know how they do it, but they've got this little logo of their vans spinning around. It's really, really cool. Anyway, what this does, it's a really nice FTP client. It's probably one of the first FTP clients I used on the Mac. And what I like about it, despite being able to connect to lots of different sources like standard FTP, SFTP, you can connect to Amazon Web Services, Google Drive as well, so pretty much all of these digital lockers you've got on there, you can connect to those. I don't really use any of that. What I use it for is the folder syncing. Now I know things like, is it FileZilla? Can that do folder syncing? But I know there's Windows software that can do folder syncing, and I find that so useful for the non-WordPress sites that we develop. We'll use something like MAMP for Mac. We'll develop them locally, and then maybe push them up to a staging server where you can test it out. And once it's ready to go live, you can have everything set up in Transmit, where you can push a button and it will just synchronize all the files. It won't push everything up, just the files that have changed, and sync them both ways. It does a dry run, so it's going to tell you exactly what it's going to do, and I trust it because it works every single time. And that's so important, isn't it, with software, that you trust what it does. Again, if you haven't got a Mac, you can't get this bit of software, but there will be other software like it that will have these sync capabilities. Something else that's really useful, and it's a bit of a niche project for us. We don't do it for anyone else, but we work doing exhibition screens. I've got people making exhibition screens for me, and we need to dump them up to an FTP. But there's so many in this folder, and I've got to then try and align this folder over here. What it allows us to do is, once we've made files on our computer, we can just drag and drop them onto the logo, and because I've set up all the folder structures, it knows exactly where to upload that to. I don't need to think about it. I don't need to open the file, don't need to open the right project. It will do all that for me. And it's just those little touches that really, I know they spent time thinking about this, and they've had those sort of problems. What FTP clients do you use to access? Sorry?
Coda.
Use Coda?
For FTP as well.
Yeah, no, it's a great tool. FileZilla, yeah, I use that a lot on Windows. Nice and fast, very simple. I can't.
IP switch.
IP switch. Heard of that? Not used it.
That's an old one.
Yeah, I even sometimes delved into Terminal and would do FTP from there, but not too often. Okay, so they're the sort of the code bits of software that we work with. That's quite a small section. This media section, we got lots of tools. There's tons of things that we work with, and I can imagine you work with lots of different video files, image files. You can imagine the client gives you a load of assets, and you've got to deal with them, and they're all named as they come out the camera. They're all massive files that you've got to deal with. It's a horrible task, and so these are some of the tools that can help you speed that process up. This is one of my new favourites. It came out last year. It's called RetroBatch. I think it's made by a company called Flying Meat Software, which is a really weird name. Their website's actually not that great, but they've got a good reputation for building top-notch software. They actually built an image editor called Acorn, which is a bit like Photoshop on Mac. I know you can get Photoshop on Mac, but it's like a really cheap version of Photoshop. Very good. They've also made this batch image processing application. It's excellent. Let me show you an example. So this is a video I did earlier today, just to show you. So I just copy and paste a whole load of images, and I've only got a small batch scaling going on, but it's basically processing these images. It's scaling them down to a maximum size that I want them to be, it's then also running a crop process, so I know they're all exactly the same size. So on the website, it's quite primitive, so the website's it's not WordPress. They will all be exactly consistent. I don't have to do any online processing. I've done it all offline and I'm pushing it up onto the website. What you just saw there is it's running through that process really quickly. It's dumping them all onto my desktop. It's even trying to name them as well. Let's see if I can run that again, just so you can see it. So when I add them here, they're all named as they were downloaded from the stock library. As it's running through, it's naming them using artificial intelligence to try and determine what's in that actual photo and give you some idea. It's not perfect, I'd like it to actually describe it a bit more than my job ends on alt tags. It's just done. But this saves a lot of time because at least when you have all those images, you've got some idea about what they are without having to look at each one.
Can I interject? How does it do that? Does it use metadata?
Magic. No, you can get it to use metadata. I can't show you here because I haven't got my Mac, but if I had my Mac, you click on that right images section and then you can specify how you want it to be named. Do you want to carry the name over from where it was loaded from? Do you want to use the metadata, replace? So a lot of these image libraries, they'll actually have reasonably good naming structures in the metadata, but the actual name is crap. So what they'll do is they'll allow you to bring that metadata and put it into the file name, or you can get it to guess. And so it will use its own naming scheme where it will look at the image, determine what's in it using maths, and then produce the name for you. Some of them work quite well, so that one says camera, that's camera 2, so there's obviously 2 cameras here. Studio, that's a pretty good guess, it's actually studio lighting. Yeah.
Yeah, is this why some of my customers call me crying?
Call you what?
Call me crying because now their images look like crap on the website.
Oh, what, because they're all crushed and small?
Yeah. No, not that. It's how they've been compressed, or they've been cropped wrong, or the aspect ratio has been changed.
Yeah, so you're going to get some images where they haven't been manually cropped and they're going to look not very good. Then you just have to change those. What this does is going to take a lot of that work out and batch process them. Most of these images in fact all of them come from a stock library. So they're all taken with a lot of space around them, so I know they're going to work. And because I've run the test through, you can just manually preview them, check them, they're fine. And then when you actually run the live ones, you know they're okay. And there was 1 or 2 I had to alter. We had to put some little additional bits of graphics over the top. But this takes a lot of work out to do that. There's another client where we wanted to make little video thumbnails and to go on an email going out. We used the same process where it put a watermark over the top. So we made an image watermark with the little play logo on, and it just appended it onto the top of all of them and resized them out. In fact, in this little write process, it was writing out 2 files at the same time of each one. So take the same input file, then write out 2 files, and it just does it in one go. In the right images, I think you can compress things there as well, so you can get it to knock out all the metadata if you want to shrink it a bit more, compress it to different sizes and that sort of thing. So I understand it does need a bit of a human touch to get it right, but a lot of the cases this can knock out a lot of work and make it a lot faster. And I know these names aren't perfect, but it's going to help you if you're going to knock up a little folder or you're presenting them to the client. It's a lot easier for them to reference these and we know what they are rather than having to look at them. I know I deal with a lot of images. And it's a pain. And I know you would do it as well. I also love the animation as it's going through. You can see it doing something. It's like a machine chugging through. It's a really good app. So that was called, what's its name now? Retro Batch. It is awesome. And I've been waiting for something like this. People have made different ones. I know Photoshop has a batch processing capability. It's pretty good, but this is even easier and better for our purposes anyway. I find Photoshop. Sorry?
It's only for Mac.
Only for Mac.
Is it free?
Is it free? No, it's, how much was it? £49 for the Pro version. You can get a cheaper version, but I got the cheaper version and said, no, this has got all the stuff I need. I upgraded.
That year or
Per month.
That's life. No subscription. No, they're one of these nice, good old-fashioned software companies where you can buy it for life. Yeah, really, really good. So you've got a lot of different options in there.
Lightroom will do something similar, but it's probably more expensive.
We've got a Creative Cloud subscription, so we can access all of that. I just find them cumbersome. This is faster.
Create actions.
Yeah. No, I've done it. I've done it before. I used to, when I was working in an agency many years ago, I would be quite pleased with myself where the project manager would think I have to do lots of processing of these images, and I would put them all into the batch process, then walk away and disappear while the screen's just chugging through, doing it all. But this is so much faster. It's the fastest thing I've seen.
When you take the actions, right, you get one little action and it opens up thousands of files. files on your screen, and then your memory goes,
Yeah.
or you forget to turn the erroring off and not log it, and the first, when you set it going, you go away, come back 2 hours later, it's still the first one that's an error.
Yeah. Oh yeah, same with this. You could get it. It could go wrong if you told it to do something. It will obey that completely. You can set up folders as well. So, for example, here you can set up a folder that it will watch and sit there. So, if you make a like processing images folder, every time you dump stuff in there or it comes in from FTP, it will just do it automatically in the background. If you want a free version of just basic compression and optimization, I use Image Optim. It's pretty cool. What it does, and you can have various different settings for this, it'll allow you to drag and drop a load of images on, and it'll just run through them, removing all the metadata, crunching them down to a preset limit. So you basically say, I want JPEGs to be 80%, say, I want PNGs not to be compressed, whatever you want, or however high the compression is, and it's set for all images. You drag and drop it in, and it'll just run through. One thing, first. The problem.
Can you have it not take the metadata out? 'Cause that's actually quite important.
It depends what it's for. Sometimes it takes up a lot of space. So for you probably wouldn't want to get rid of the metadata.
It's one of the few applications that will actually satisfy Google's page speed.
All right.
So
didn't know that.
it's worthwhile for that, and it crunches the data down so it'll actually get you the proper page speed.
Well, despite RetroBatch being really good and it does a lot of that, I still run them into this afterwards because it just ekes out a little bit more.
Yeah, it's well worth it. I use that a lot.
Yeah.
It is because it's good.
It's a very good app. It's free. Just be careful because it's destructive. So what will happen is if you have an image on your desktop and you drag it onto it, that image on the desktop is being compressed and immediately saved back. It does not give you any option, just does it immediately. That is a benefit because it does it quickly without any dialogues popping up. But you've got to know about it in advance, otherwise if you've just taken everything off your USB drive from a client, just got rid of them off your USB drive and dragged them in there, they are all compressed fully. Yeah, I always do generally, but it's just good to know that. And it's all preset, so as long as you get your presets right, and they're generally the same, this is really good. RetroBatch is better for lots of other things. This one's Pixelmator. Has anyone used Pixelmator? It's a graphics processing app. It's like Photoshop. It's Mac only. I really like it because it was cheap at the time. I think it was about £40, the equivalent of. And I quite like that version. It's nice and fast. It was dedicated to run on the Mac, which the Photoshop isn't quite. So while Photoshop is great, they're not working directly to the Mac's strengths because they want to run it on Mac and PC. Photoshop would, because it would use all of the structure of the operating system, make it run really, really fast. So it's great. They came out with a new version called Pixelmator Pro. And one of the things I like about this is on the next screen. It's the photo cutting out. And I know Photoshop has something like this, but I just find it so fast in here, where you can basically just loop around loosely the object, and it'll understand through various, obviously looking at the contrast, looking at what that object might be, and how you're moving around it, to basically try and determine how best to cut that image out. So you might see as you're dragging around an image, it's actually altering the cut points as it goes, while it starts to figure out that's a person, that's an object, oh that's a sealed object, so we'll close it up. So for me, that can actually make it quite quick to chop out certain elements. It's also got a smart eraser somewhere. So if you've got a nice beachy scene, you've got a couple there, but there's a girl just pinching a sandwich in the background, and you want to get rid of that, you can use the eraser and just loosely rub it over the top, and the girl will disappear. Most cases it will go. It's not perfect. So there are certain situations where if you've got a very complicated background, it's not going to be able to recreate that. But in most instances, it works really, really well. And there's certain scenes where you might be able to get the majority of the job done with that at quite high fidelity, and you just have to go and manually touch up some other things. I don't know, as a photographer, you probably want to go in and look at the detail, but sometimes we just need to create a social media image, and it's low resolution, you're working with a big resolution, you make the changes, when you shrink it down, you will not see any of those artifacts at all. So Pixelmator is a really good tool for that, for very rapidly editing things. We've had a few issues with it where in the new version it didn't quite do everything the old version did. I think they're trying to migrate it over. But generally speaking, it was a really worthwhile purchase. See if there's anything else I've missed. No, basically it's very quick to load in, works fast on the Mac, and you've got a nice smart loop tool where you can go around, and then smart arrays. This app is awesome. I don't know if anyone's used it. It's called Miro Video Converter. We get lots of different videos from different places and need to maybe just sling them up onto our project management system just for people to preview, or we just want to compress them down to MP4. I think you can do that through various different paid applications. You can bring it to an image, a video editor, and then recompress it out. What I like about this, like a lot of the apps I pick up, is I don't have too much to think about. I just drag the images in, or sorry, the videos in. I go to Format, select MP4, press Convert, and it will just start converting. Dump them out into a separate folder, and then I can use them. And it's really useful for screen grabs from Mac. If you take a screen grab, it ends up as a massive .mov file, which is really high quality, but it's no use if you just want to quickly send someone a screenshot. Or, like I wanted to show you Pyrobatch, well, that ended up like 18 meg. I didn't want to put that on my poor iPad, so I have to suffer that. I run it through here, and it knocks it down by a factor of 10, so it's now like 1.8 meg in very short order of time. You can do that with lots of other bits of software if you want to do it. In the terminal, you can use something called FFmpeg if you want to do typing in sort of incantations into the terminal, and it can work quite well. But this is a nice front end for all of that, where you just drag and drop them in, and it just processes it. You can even, if you want, go to different formats like Android, or you can downscale it if you want to go just to small iPhones, but I just tend to go to MP4. It's a really good format. If you use a Mac, I'm forever, well, in fact any computer, I'm forever trying to find a colour. So I want to just pick a colour from a client's website, or I want to pick it from somewhere else, or I see a colour, that's a nice colour, I want to use that elsewhere. What I used to do is I'll just screenshot it, bring it into my photo editor, and then hover over the tool to find out what that hex code is, or the RGB value. This, I found recently, has been in Mac for a long time, but if you just type in, when you're searching for applications, digital colour meter, this will come up, and it will look a little like this, and it just sits. You can place it on your screen, and you just hover your cursor around. So it doesn't show the cursor when you do a screen grab, but I was hovering the cursor just about there to get that purple colour, so just on the border. And it tells you what the RGB values are, which is quite useful. But also, if you press a shortcut, keyboard shortcut, you get the hex code. So you can just copy that into your CSS or wherever you want to use that, and very quickly get it without having to take a screenshot, drag it into another program, and then pull it out. I know there are tools like this on the PC as well, but it's worth, if that's something you do a lot, you want to find a tool where it's just quick to do it, because if it can just save you 30 seconds every time, it can help you churn through a few
Something
things.
like that, because one that I use for, which comes in Chrome, just sits as, I can't remember what it's called.
I needed that earlier.
Yeah, and I found them in, the nice thing about this, it sits across everything. So whatever you're in, you can use it. I used to use Photoshop for it actually, because Photoshop was very good about picking colours outside of the application. Pixelmator didn't, and so I came across this like, I want to pick that colour, it's just there, and I can't pick it up.
Yeah.
And this allows me to do
Chrome
that.
is browser specific, so if you go outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
There is a shortcut so we can go on Photoshop.
Yeah, I tend to use Safari a lot, so I do use Chrome for development or go into any Google services, but Safari I use a lot for more other things. Although actually, with the accessibility talk the other month, I've got a lot of those plugins loaded up on there. But yeah, this is really good and it's free. It's part of Mac OS. Now, as I said, we do a podcast. So to prepare our podcast, sometimes we do it in person, like we're recording it next week. But most of the time, we do it over FaceTime or Skype, depending on who we're talking to. And it's surprisingly difficult to get audio out of those systems because they're meant for communication. They don't really allow you to take it out. There are ways of doing it, but it's a bit awkward. This program, what's nice about it, it just allows you to pick the program you want to take the audio from. So if it's Skype, you load Skype up, you pick the application Skype, and the moment you initiate a Skype call, it's going to start recording that audio for you and dump it in a format that you want it in. So I'll give you an example of what our podcast recorder looks like. So here's a little node. It looks actually quite similar to Retrobatch. I like these sort of nodal systems. So you've got your application bit here, so that's where you go in and you pick the application that you want to use. It feeds it through some menu bars, so I can see those at the top flicking away, so I know audio is being recorded. Some VU meters in here, just so I can check the audio isn't too loud either end. This just helps compress it a little bit, just so so each side isn't peaking and sounding a bit rubbish. And then it goes out to the recorder here, so it basically takes my channel and the other person's channel and records them onto a stereo channel separately. So it's one file but stereo channels, which is great for our editor, who can then split it up, and if I'm accidentally coughing while the other person's talking, they can whip that out. But then also from me monitoring it, it just takes the other person's side and feeds it through to my output device, which is just headphones. So it's really good. I don't get any echo from their side, I just get me. And you can do lots of other funky things. You can get the save out in multiple different formats at the time. You can have different applications collecting in. You can even feed the audio back in on itself. Gets a bit crazy at that point. I just wanted it for this one simple thing, but it works really well. It's also great if you want to capture audio from a source you couldn't normally download. So if you want to, someone has got a video online and you want to listen to it when you're away from your, you haven't got any internet access, you need to listen to it, but there's no way of downloading that video. This is awkward somehow. You can do it with this. So you can feed Safari or Chrome into here, and it's going to record everything that's coming through that. It's a really good application. Most people don't need it. I mean, we need it because we're doing a specific job for our podcast, but it's really good if you just need to grab audio from different places. That was £53. So it's a little pricier than the others, but it does a job, and like all of these other apps, it does it really well. So some WordPress ones. So these are my two favourite ones. There's lots of other things we use, but I imagine either you're more familiar with them, or I just wanted to show off all the other apps that we use really. So in terms of WordPress, there's two things we use. I think they're both made by the same company. You may already know them. Rocket Cache is something we use a lot with all of our clients, basically, because once we understood how one caching program works, we could be good at that. We wanted to make sure we put it everywhere. It works quite well just by installing it and activating it. It generally does improve the site a little bit. As you start ticking boxes to make it more efficient and let it do other things like combining multiple CSS together, or JavaScript, or lazy loading images so they're not all loading at once and sort of blocking the page from loading and you're waiting until it happens later on, it can get a bit sticky with some themes. So some themes it might not work with and you'll just have to adapt something somewhere. But actually, over time, Rocket have been getting better at that, because as they understand what themes people come across and what other problems are, they fix them for you and make sure that doesn't happen. So generally speaking now, we're able to almost tick every single option there, and it works very well. We've seen some massive speed increases by using this, particularly with WooCommerce, especially when you've got WooCommerce with lots of variations. It can be really a little bit slow, and this has made a huge difference to that. Massive difference, really. Great speed improvement. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but we typically look for websites to be under 2 seconds, but we target 1. So the minimum really is under 2 seconds, but we target 1. A lot of cases, WordPress out of the box, depending on the platform you put it on, and the plugins you've got on there, doesn't always hit that. With this on there, it will, and it makes a huge difference. It also, if you wanted to, it can help you get away with using a cheaper host as well. If you wanted to go down the route, probably not a good idea, but it's something where you can actually make it more efficient. You're not getting your host being hit as much. Really useful. It's a reasonable price, I think. It's about £30 per site, 150 if you want it unlimited. So that's what we did. We just bought the unlimited, 150 quid a year. We can use it on as many sites as we like, and so we do. And I like it because they are in good communication with us and they're wanting to update. Again, like the host you were talking about earlier, whether that will change over time, I don't know. But so far, so good. Does anyone else use a different caching program that they would recommend?
Varnish on Nginx.
Varnish, yeah. So that's lower level, isn't it?
Server side, so
Yeah.
yeah. But other than that, no, it's just browser caching in htaccess.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to steer clear from plugins because they're a bit of a double-edged sword. For users, great, they can do the job really well. But when you get deep into it, you can see actually why do I want to do things like that, and you can optimise things in a different way.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have their uses.
I think there are certain things that are best done by the programmer, and if you build it in the right way, you won't necessarily need all of that.
Yeah.
But certain things, if you're like WooCommerce, I found can be quite heavyweight. And this
When you say WooCommerce, is that front end, not the back end?
more the front end, yeah. When it comes down to, we've got one
When
site.
you mentioned variations, I know that because linked taxonomies that
Yeah.
is so cumbersome. So yeah, and if you're talking about caching in the back end, that would worry me a bit.
No, just in the front end. So all this is doing caching in the front end and then presenting that as a HTML file for it to quickly load. It doesn't affect any of the checkout or basket. It knows about that. You can tie it in with varnish as well. So if you clear the cache in here, it will make sure varnish isn't going to come into contact with that. If you use Cloudflare, it will tie into that. I don't use that, but you could do. It's a really nice tool. Found it, makes a huge difference. And then actually, part of the same company, I think, is this sort of plugin called Imagify. And this, I think, is really good because you can have it in two different modes. So when you've prepared the site and maybe you've launched it, so you've gone through all the steps we heard about earlier, you've launched it, then you can go and optimize the site. So you can put this plugin in and it'll run through and optimize everything that's in the library already. It backs everything up, so if there's a mistake, you can roll everything back to exactly where it was. And it does it, we've had that, and it's worked perfectly. You can even go in, and let's say you want to be quite aggressive with the compression of all the images. You can get it to do that automatically, and then maybe a couple. There's some big, maybe masthead images that you want to just be a little bit better, less artifacts in there. You can actually back those off a little bit and compress them specifically. It'll also compress things as you upload them. So from a client point of view, they don't have to use RetroBatch, they don't have to use image opt-in. They can just upload them and they don't even think about it. They don't see the plugin, it just happens in the background and it compresses them once it's set up right. In terms of cost, you can try it out, but we pay £38 a year for, I can't remember what that limit that gives us, but we don't reach that limit. We do lots and lots of images. And for all of our clients, you can buy, for that £38, you get one license key and you can use it over all of your clients. And basically, if you reach that limit, you just up your monthly or your yearly payment. It does work very, very well. You've got to be careful with some images, if there's high contrast in them or lots of detail like waves or something like that, then you've got to be careful with compression. But apart from that, it works really well. And from a client's point of view, they don't have to think about it, which is really handy. So just a few final things really. In terms of the project, so I've talked about how we might do coding, and admittedly I don't do a huge amount of coding anymore, I'm mainly talking. And we've looked at the media stuff, which I do play with a lot, and I want to be out there talking to clients, not playing with the media so much, so hence those time-saving things. But this is another application we use, and we use it as we're a remote team. This is really handy because it's all web-based. And it allows us to manage all of the different projects and the things we do within the company in one place. I've been using Basecamp since not long after they launched, but not quite when they launched, but certainly back 10 years ago we were using it then. And it's changed quite a bit. It's moved things forward. It's actually a bit Marmite for some people. Some people don't like the way it handles things, they just want to revert back to email. That's how they feel in control over everything, but that actually is no good when you've got multiple people working on a project and someone doesn't send the email around to who it's meant to go to, or you're sharing a file, I've got to use WeTransfer for that file, I can't just attach it to that particular message, so you've then got two messages going off like that, have I sent that WeTransfer to the right place, or Google Drive, or whatever it might be. So this is why we tend to use this system. It costs us about 75 quid a month. It's probably one of our most expensive things that we buy, and I've been paying that for a long time, but it's worth it because it manages everything. So I'll give you a little insight into our project here. So this is how we look in the homepage. We've got what I call our water cooler here. So we've got a chat room. So you can go in there, and anyone who's either a contractor or an employee, we can go in and just chat, a bit like Slack, but it's not a separate application. It's just all within the same thing. And then there's a few things here like I've got far too many assignments. That's my job, is to work that number down all the time. But people keep adding more. It's not fair. And then underneath that, we've got the internal stuff like incubator, so that's the work I've got to do in terms of sales and talking to different people, so I have a task list for that. Our own internal marketing. We've got our bad debtors in the accounts. You don't want to be in the task list on that because Claire's going to chase you. And various other different things. These are all us, and then we've got all the client projects down here, which I have to block out. But it's nice because everything is in one place. So some of the things it covers are, in fact, I'll show you here. You've got Campfire, which is like Slack, basically. It's your chat room. It's really simple. It's just very, very simple text chat. I find Slack can be quite good, but I tend to miss a lot of messages. Sometimes I'm on your forum, actually, we're having a conversation, and our conversation has run off and disappeared into the ether. Unless we pay for it. And obviously this is paid for, but there's that. They can tend to be a bit noisy for us. Lots of things that are going on. This helps filter it into very specific channels, if you will. This is where I spend most of my time, so this is the task list. And if you go into that, you can have different tasks set up for different things. So if you're doing web development, you might have one for design, one for production, one for go live. You might have an admin one, which is hidden from the client for sort of invoicey stuff like that. You can invite the client on and allow them to see certain bits and bobs. So you can say, I want them to see Campfire, I want them to see just these tasks. Got a schedule. I do a lot of monthly recurring work with clients, so I'll go out and see them. So this is really important for me to add in what the date is. I can add clients onto that. They'll be reminded when that date is. And I know you can accomplish this with different things. I know there are different apps like Trello will do some aspects of this. And in some cases, it does it better, like the way it manages the tasks in different boards. I quite like that for an overview. It's a really nice way of looking at it. But for the detail, I just get lost in all of this detail and different information that's irrelevant for what I need to do at the time. And it doesn't necessarily have everything else I need in one place, or the right place, or the access levels I want. Or you could do it with calendar or email, but again, they're split into different places. So if I can get everyone on board and explain to them how this works and why it's a benefit for everyone to use it, it generally goes down well. And it's it's the main app we use internally and with clients, and it's a really good tool. And I'm not advocating this necessarily, but I don't know if there are how many people actually use specific tools for managing communication and trying to optimize it. Maybe I overthink it. Maybe I'm always trying to optimize and make things as efficient as possible. But that's me. I like doing that. It's a great tool. Does anyone else have any other tools they use for managing their projects? What do you use for that sort of thing? Sorry? Rike and Jira. Is that like a problem management? Tickets, that's right, yeah.
The Gyro.
Yeah.
Gyro,
Yes, I've heard of it, not used it. Rike I've used it.
Similar to Basecamp.
Use that a little bit as well.
Yeah.
GitHub's quite good for like issues and projects. You can do like, I've only started using it recently, so you can create issues and then you can drag those issues to a project, and then you can, a bit like Trello, you can create boards
Yes.
for issues in GitHub, which is quite
Yeah, you can pipeline GitHub into a really good project management system. You have to doctor it and bend it into, but out of the box for code base, yeah, it's great. But you can turn it into Basecamp
Mm.
if you
Oh, and I've seen many people who have a self-hosted Basecamp-esque type solution. They've basically taken some of the ideas from this, which aren't unique necessarily. They've taken them and made it into something you host on your own Linux box somewhere.
I think with Basecamp, I've used Basecamp with lots of different people. So I've got Basecamp account, they add me, and then I'm in different.
Yes.
So when you're in that situation, you've got lots of noise in that sense, where you then try to isolate different guys. But for single agency, it's brilliant to
Yeah.
use. The only issue I think is educating people to do it. Like I
Yes.
said, you've already touched on that. That once you can convince them to use it, they can see the benefit of it,
Yeah.
and actually the method of using it is beneficial in the long run.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the biggest hurdle I think is convincing people, especially clients.
It is?
Clients will buy into it initially. I tend to find that they use it for a short time and then they revert back to email. Did you get that email? Can you just put it in Basecamp?
Yeah.
5 minutes.
If that happens, I'll copy the email and put it back into Basecamp.
Yeah.
I know sometimes they might feel I'm being a bit passive aggressive, saying this is what you will use, but it's not. I'm just saying thanks. I don't care how you send it to me. Send it to me as a text message. I don't care. Whatever's easiest for you, but I'm going to put it back in and we'll communicate that way.
Yeah.
That tends to work. I think if they can understand that it's going to be a benefit for the project and it's going to work for everyone. You do bring up a good point though. When you're on the receiving end and you are part of multiple base camps, I don't think they manage that very well, because it's difficult to move between them. And I should see them as almost, you see all the projects on one, regardless of what you're in. It's a bit like Slack actually. Slack has that issue where it's a bit difficult to jump between.
I've got my partner helps manage the business in my time as well, and if you mention Basecamp, so she just panics because she doesn't know if she's communicating with me, whoever the third party is, and whether the client can see it. So she's always in a bad habit of almost sending that email and going, no. So Basecamp, she just panics and she just won't touch it.
We got around that, right? It's got these things at the top called pings, which are basically like instant messages between individuals or maybe a few people as a group. So we got into the habit of saying, don't say anything in a project you wouldn't say to the client. Anything. Because even if it is private, just to be sure, it's better not to. It's a bit like saying something on the internet. You're better off saying, having the attitude that I don't mind if this goes public, because that's our opinion, that's what we put forward. Anything that is more private, it's either pings or phone calls. So if my web developer wants to rant about a client, then they phone. But there are lots of different sets. I think Trello is a really nice one of the problems that Basecamp has, I find, is it's great at managing the detail and the communications. It's not so good at managing that high level. Sometimes you just want to back off and just get a feel for what's going on. You know, what projects are coming to an end, what's starting, certainly from my point of view. And it doesn't do that very well. But I can't find any system that will do that very
Do
well.
you find that you end up using less reliance on emails all the time?
Yeah, I do.
So
Yeah.
as a project, you're not emailing everybody, everything goes through Basecamp.
Yes. Or you can say it's on Basecamp. And if you have a consistent approach, and I think you should have that regardless of the system, you should always have a consistency to what you do, then people will know where to find things. Because if you're already putting it in the same place, you're using the same words, you've maybe got good subject lines on all your emails, people can understand where you put things. I think the problem comes where you start a project, you don't tell people how to communicate in it, and everyone's just firing emails back and forwards. We've had that in the past. We try not to now. So yeah, that's £75 a year. Yeah, you can't get any cheaper. That's just what it is. It's that for everyone. There's no user basis for that. It's just flat rate, £75, however you use it. That's pretty much it. We've spoken about a few tools. Are there anything that I haven't mentioned or any other really useful tools that you guys use that you want to share? There must be one. It can be PC related as well. I don't mind. I do use a PC occasionally.
I
Yeah.
use Toggle to manage my
the time tracking.
because it's only me to track my time, whatever project I'm working on. I find that really useful.
Yeah.
It's great. At the end of every week, it just gives me a synopsis of however many hours I've spent on whatever project.
Are you diligent at doing it though? Because I've tried those
I'm
things
pretty
before.
good, yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm actually more. I tend to forget to put it on rather than forgetting to turn it off.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty good really. I find it really good because I don't know what I was doing before, but certainly if I'm charging an hourly rate for support or whatever else, then I always do it that way.
Yeah, it's a nice looking app as well. It works quite
it
neatly
works
and it works on phones as well,
Yeah.
so it works across systems.
Yeah, it has an API as well, which is really good.
Does it?
So that you can, I use I'm really bad at timekeeping. Like meetings fine, but if I'm on a project, I know that I've got a day on it, I'll do a day, and that might spill into the evening, and then I might dip into it over the weekend, so I don't actually track a lot of the time that I do spend on jobs, and that really frustrates Rachel. But I can't use Toggle, because I never switch it on for a start, which is like a problem, and switching it off, is another problem, because I'll come back the weekend and it'll be still on.
Yes.
Actually, I did do some work on that.
Yes, client, I did work all weekend on that.
The other thing I found that useful for is assessing actually what to charge for projects.
Yeah.
So I would quote for a project, and then I would put my time in. I'm like, I've spent double the amount of time on it than what I was actually getting.
If you're really disciplined,
So I've got
you
better.
can make it work really well. But we have a separate job book, which is actually a WordPress site.
Yeah.
And I don't pay a license for it and anything like that, which is why we have it, and it's accessible through the cloud effectively. So, and we do communications and comments and stuff. But because Toggle has got an API, there's no reason why you can't use that to update our own job book. So that's what I like about it. But yeah, if you as long as you get that discipline right, I think it's a brilliant at that.
Depends how you use time tracking as well, because I think sometimes you don't want to or it might be difficult to time track everything all the time, but sometimes it's nice to say, this week I'm just going to time track everything I do. We'll take a snapshot, see how much I'm dipping into different apps, or whether I'm being efficient, and not do that all the time. Depends how you build, really. We don't time track it per se, but I do occasionally will, even if it's just a bit of paper. I love my apps, but sometimes having a second screen in paper on the desk, just with a pen next to it, it's there. I'm not having to go into anything else or forget about it. It's just there, and it can be quite good just to tick boxes. Any other apps? One more app, maybe? Pen and paper, yeah. I love it. I still
Yeah, I also have a logbook.
I still have it. It's really, really useful.
There is one tool called Rescue Time. Rescue Time, which is we employed somebody, we had him on Mac so that we could then at the end of the week see what we was
Is he
doing.
doing that in a week? Is he doing anything?
Well, it was surprising when you do monitor stuff.
Yeah.
It's surprising how much time you do spend on social media.
Yeah.
Mostly. But it also tracks the apps that you use, so you can see whether you're using text edit or not text edit, Sublime Text, or so it will also segregate the time that it thinks you've been in development or creative, because it will see that you've been using Photoshop or Illustrator, and it will give you that map of the whole week.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was shocking how much was spent on social media.
Not doing anything.
Yeah, percentage of work time. Yeah, but you can actually track it through weeks. So
And what was
that's
that called
really-
again?
it's called Rescue Time. So
Yes.
you load it Rescue Time. So you load it on your, even if you're just using it for your own personal. I would recommend.
Yeah, and you can get it free for a bit, can't you?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Is it available for PC?
It's an online app, so I would. Yeah,
I think it is.
yeah.
It even it will look in. I think that's the one that takes the title bar text as well. So if you're working in Sublime Text or website or file,
Yeah, you can also.
yeah, and you can then say, oh, that's actually attributed to this project.
Yeah.
I think it does break it down into what websites you spend
Yeah.
time on. So if you're like on Twitter for 2 hours a day,
Yeah.
it will tell you that. Or
Yeah.
Or
if you're
tweet
in
that to
development, or
yeah.
yeah.
It's then the problem is sifting through all that information, because it's so valuable, and you look at it and it's like, hold your hands up, because there's so much detail there. But useful
Well,
if you're
just
tracking
realisation for your own benefit.
Yeah.
So actually, yeah, Christ, I'm not doing much design creatively. Or if you've got a team of people, I know it's a little bit sneaky, but as long as you're transparent and honest about it, look, we are going to do this. We did it, an employee in the office. Turned out he was working more than I was, so, all great, it's here, give him a bonus. But, yeah, I just think it is useful to know that stuff.
Yeah, that is. Well, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate you listening to me talking about tools. Hopefully you take something away from it, and if you haven't got a map, I apologise. It's always
And I apologize for giving you a hard time with images. I didn't mean to give you a hard time. It's a genuine issue and concern of mine.
What, over-compressed images? Or
Not just
overly?
over compressed, it's just a big crop wrongly,
Yeah.
or over compressed, or aspect ratio being changed. I've had turned images over to customers, and I go and look at the website, and I'm like, I don't want my name anywhere near that because of what they've done to the images. It's just that.
I am sensitive to that,
Yeah.
because you know when it's wrong. You can run through them and then quickly preview them all, and you know that's just not right, or it's chopping their head in the wrong place. Yeah. Cool. Thank you very much.
That's great, thank you, Ben.
Thank you.